I'm Eastern PA Weather Authority meteorologist Bobby Martrich, and this is a special video update on Hurricane Joaquin, and we're going to give you a breakdown. It's going to be a long video here, but we'll hopefully give you a breakdown of why we see what we see and where we think this is going to go. This is, of course, Hurricane Joaquin down here, sitting near the Bahamas. It is now a strong Category 1 hurricane, but it is actually strengthening and expected to become a major hurricane somewhere up just north of the Bahamas here. And after that point, the track was a little bit sketchy as far as where it would go. So we're going to try to give us our best shot here and give you the latest update of what we're thinking. And I thought it would be easier to do this in a video format instead of doing a written blogs. A lot of times people look at our maps and they're like, I don't know what they're talking about here. So I'm going to break this down for you and show you what's going on here. Of course, here it is right now. What we're going to be watching for is for this system that's going to continue to the southwest here, and it's going to actually head toward the central Bahamas, and it's going to take a turn to the north here. This is a look at very early Friday morning, and this thing is going to crawl up to the north here. Now, I'm using the GFS as a point of reference, and the GFS has been showing something similar to this for the last couple runs here, and I really starting to think it has the right idea with this system, especially since it's getting a lot of support from not only its own ensemble members, but several other models, which I'll show you as well. Here is the GFS moving. Here is now early Saturday morning. It's actually strengthening now, getting close to Category 3 hurricane strength. Now, at this point, it's going to be a little bit tricky here. We're going to have winds that are going to be already increasing across our area here on Friday and Saturday. And the big reason for that, you see this big high pressure sitting right up here. This is a very strong high pressure system, 1,042 millibars. And then you have a 979 millibar low down here, which is our hurricane. The pressure gradient in between the two, you're going to have a channeling wind here come through from the northeast. Winds are going to wrap around this because you have a clockwise flow around high pressure, and you have a counterclockwise flow around low pressure, which in this case is the hurricane. So you're going to have that all coming into the coastline here. So we can get some winds during this period here that are going to be sustained, especially by the coast. 25 to 35 miles per hour, could have some gusts over 50, maybe even 60 miles per hour right along the immediate coastline. I think further inland you're going to be a lot less than that, but we're still talking about something that could be in the 20 to 30 mile per hour sustained range at the height. Looking at Friday and then again on Sunday. Actually over the weekend as a whole, we'll have some gusty winds with this system. So 20 to 30, gusts over 40 inland, and then you have gusts as high as 60 miles per hour along the coast here. Now, that's the first part of this, so we'll get into the wind later. As this system, as the GFS is depicting here, is now showing this coming up here after taking the southwest turn. It's going to come up straight like this, straight north, and then take a jog to the northwest. And we think it's going to impact North Carolina or somewhere in the vicinity, anywhere from actually Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, all the way up to the North Carolina-Virginia border is open game, we think, for this landfall. We have several reasons for that. I want to go over to the upper air vorticity, and this is what's driving this system here. We have a big trough axis that closes off. This is a closed trough that's sitting like this. Here's our hurricane. So right now, this is not, the two of these are not affecting one another. So this is its own entity, and so is the trough axis. What we think is going to end up happening here is we go to the next frame of the GFS here. We do think that eventually, by the time we get to Friday evening, we're going to have some interaction between the two. This is the beginning of a phase here. So you can now see that here's your trough axis like this, but you're also seeing some interaction here with this system. So this is the beginning of a phase here. We're starting to capture Joaquin and take it. Once it does so, we'll take it toward the coastline. This thing's going to act to pull it in here, and it can't go too much farther north anyway because you have a big ridge sitting over the top here, big high pressure sitting up here. So this really can't go too much farther north anyway. So it makes sense. Hurricanes taking the path of least resistance are going to want to turn away from where the resistance is. Here's your resistance up here. So this thing is going to, the trough axis is actually going to negatively tilt, and it's hard to see here, but this is the negative tilt here. See how it's you got to think back here to trigonometry here, but this is a negative axis, negatively tilted axis. So this is actually going to help pull this in, while this is very strong, which will also allow it to come into the coastline because it's so strong. And it's going to pick it up and capture it. So I'm going to show you that here in the next frame, and that's what it does. And by the time we get to Saturday, this is what we're dealing with. This is actually, I think, Saturday evening, or Saturday overnight, I'm sorry. This thing is completely captured, and then it just pinwheels this thing right into the coastline, and really has nowhere to go other than that. So we did see some solutions today that had from the National Hurricane Center, which they have adjusted now. In all fairness, they have adjusted. The National Hurricane Center did have a track toward New Jersey. We think that is now off the table. We actually said that last night. We thought that was off the table. But today at the 11 o'clock National Hurricane Center advisory, they did insist that it was going to, the center of the cone was heading right towards South Jersey. I don't think that's possible at this juncture here, but our two scenarios are the North Carolina landfall, which we're heavily favoring now, probably 75%, and then a 25% chance that it doesn't hit the coastline at all and actually heads off to the northeast here like this, kind of like what the European model shows. Again, I'll show you that in a second too. Not putting as much weight on that because we have a lot of different things going on that really don't make sense with the European model right now. Just because the European model historically has been one of the best models we've had to look at doesn't mean it's going to be right all the time. And it was right with Sandy. Again, doesn't mean it's going to be right all the time. It's going to be wrong sometimes. It was wrong the end of January last year with that big blizzard that never happened. So the European model is not immortal, so it's not going to be correct every single time. Just to give you some collaborative models here, this is looking at some other things that agree with it. This is the Canadian model here. Now, I would never use the Canadian model for tropical storm forecasting of any kind, any kind of tropical cyclone. But in this case, I'm going to use it just because it agrees with the GFS. And it shows it coming up and curving back into probably more like Wilmington, which is right about here. Here's Wilmington. Then up here is your Outer Banks. Of course, this is Norfolk, Virginia, right here. There's Norfolk, and down to the south here. Here's Myrtle Beach. So anywhere in between these areas here is a good area, we think, for potential landfall. Some other models. These are some secondary models that we look at too. This is the GFDL. This is a hurricane specialty model. In other words, it was designed specifically for tropical systems. Now, don't pay attention to the pressure here. I think this is a little ridiculous. 945 millibars would be probably a strong category 4. I don't think we get that strong, but the track is the most important. And again, it's taking it right in to just north of Morehead City here. So again, this is another one that agrees with that North Carolina track. Here is the HWRF. This is another hurricane specialty model. Again, this is taking it a little bit similar to the GFDL, but it's taking up a little bit further north. Here's Norfolk, Virginia, right here. So this is coming right across the Outer Banks, North Carolina, which are situated just like this, and then it comes inland just like that. Again, don't pay attention to the pressure, say 949. This is probably too low. But the whole idea here is a general consensus here that with not only these models here, but also some of the model ensembles that are running are indicating that most of them are hitting here in the North Carolina region. Here is a wider look at the HWRF and the path it takes, just to give you an idea of where it's taking. Current center is right here. This is going to continue to drift off to the southwest before it makes a turn to the north, and then when that trough captures it, we think it heads in just like that. Either it might not be that far north, near the North Carolina Virginia border, which we think is still possible, but we more likely going to head in somewhere like this into either central or southern North Carolina and bring all those heavy rains and winds with it. It should make landfall as a Category 2 hurricane. Again, we do expect it to be a Category 3. It's probably going to be somewhere down in this area here before it starts turning and that trough picks it up. One of the things that the hurricane is going to do, once that trough picks it up and it becomes closed off and the upper level low captures it, it's going to transition from a true, by definition, hurricane to a hybrid system, which is meaning that we're going to go from with a hurricane, you're talking about a warm chord system that's going to transition into a cold chord system. So it's going to take on a different characteristic. So undoubtedly, after Sandy, when it did the same thing. Sandy came up here like this and hit into South Jersey, and when it made that left turn, when it was all the way out here, no hurricane warnings were issued because it became technically became a cold chord system, was no longer classified as a hurricane. So lessons learned from that with the National Hurricane Center. I'm sure they're still going to keep up when they put up the hurricane watches up here. I'm sure they're going to keep those up all the way to landfall this time because the effects of the system, whether it's not technically a hurricane or not, doesn't really matter. You're still getting the same kind of effects from it with wind gusts with Category 2 strength that could be 90, 100 miles per hour along the coast here. Obviously some serious beach erosion. And we don't have to be anywhere near this landfall. The good news is we're not getting a direct hit like Sandy here, so this is not a repeat of Sandy here. But we will have effects of those winds and some beach erosion here. Again, we're talking about winds that are going to be as early as Thursday night all the way through at least Friday and Saturday, and then potentially Sunday and Monday. Again, we have some gusty conditions coming through as well. But you're going to have some beach erosion. At the height of the storm, we could be talking about winds that are going to be 25 to 35 miles per hour sustained, and you have gusts 55 to 60 miles per hour along the immediate coast. That will cause some beach erosion, definitely, and obviously waves will be a huge concern, some tidal flooding, and some storm surge as well. So we'll be following that closely. Do want to show the European model, though, and what it's doing. Here is the European model solution. Now, a little bit different here. This is looking at hour 72. So this is actually very early in the morning on Saturday. Still has the system down here. Very strong, though. But this is the trough here that actually winds up kicking this thing out. It does turn negative tilt, the trough does. But for whatever reason, and I think it has a lot to do with Ida's remnants that are going to interfere with this, are actually forcing lower heights, and this thing tries to escape east like this. So it is a possibility this happens. Again, we're waiting at 25% only to the European model solution that this occurs. But I'll show you what happens in the next couple frames here with this system. If I can get this to load. It's still going. We'll get back to that. But it's going to eventually curve off to the northeast here. And here you can see it's starting to do that now as this trough actually winds up kicking it out instead of helping it here. So in the next frame it actually kicks out even further. It actually forms another mid-level low down here near Jacksonville, but that actually helps to kick this thing out and lowers heights. So this is we don't think this is it's not an impossible solution, and it's one that is very possible, but we're keeping this at only a 25% chance. We do think this is making landfall, and it will come up from a position of about here and head right into the coastline somewhere between Myrtle Beach and we'll say Norfolk, Virginia. We'll say somewhere between there is our most likely landfall point. This is subject to change, though. Nothing set in stone yet, but this is our take and what we think, just based on everything we're looking at. Here is the hurricane model track guidance, and some of this got cut off a little bit, but you can get the gist of what's going on here. Here's where we're at. Now, if you take out every single model that it runs and you plotted that, these are called spaghetti plots. If you plotted these courses of what each model is saying, you can see an overwhelming majority of these models are showing this coming right into the North Carolina coast. You see the majority of them are coming right here. So that's really the consensus or the middle ground, I would say. If you're going to make a mean of these two, that's where it would end up. And then you'd have a couple outlier systems that are showing a total miss or doing something crazy here, and I think that's what's going on here with that. Still a possibility it still goes a little bit further south into South Carolina too, but again, that's a lower chance. I think North Carolina is your ground zero right now for this system. Going into the latest National Hurricane Center advisory, again, they did shift it to the west. They do have a major hurricane once it gets to the northern Bahamas, and then it continues up here like this. They did shift it west and hitting the Outer Banks now, which I wouldn't disagree with. This is, like we said, it could be anywhere, we think, from Myrtle Beach, which is right about here, all the way up into here as a landfall point. So they're having it pretty close. They're on the northern periphery here of where we have it. I would draw this cone probably a little bit more like this. But again, they have shifted and they are adjusting to the latest model guidance, and then it does have it coming inland here as a tropical storm once it gets over land here and starts to weaken. Again, this is going to be a hybrid system, so it's not going to be a true hurricane or tropical storm at this point. This will be post-tropical, but it's going to be a cold core system once it transitions. Now, we're going to get into the GFS now. I'm going to give you a day-by-day breakdown. This is, again, we're following the GFS because there's a lot of collaboration, a lot of support. So we're going to look at this and show what we're looking at. This is actually looking at Thursday night. I think most of your day here on Thursday across most of the area, except for extreme southern areas here, are going to be dry, just cloudy. Might have some showers sneaking in toward evening, and then you have some rain overnight that's going to creep in from the south. This is going to continue into Friday here. Here's a look at Friday, but again, this is favoring our southern two-thirds of our coverage area here. This area up here by Luzerne, Lackawanna, Bradford, Tioga, Susquehanna, Center County, places like that, you could stay completely dry all day here on Friday. just remaining cloudy, of course, but it will be, again, it will be breezy because that high pressure is going to be off to the north here, and you have this low pressure that's off the screen, but our hurricane is to the south. You're going to have some channeling winds coming in here, quite gusty. That's why you have some high wind watches and coastal flood watches up along the Jersey shore points here. So we are going to be watching for that. Here is a look at Saturday then. We do think here comes our system here from the south, and this is looking at Saturday evening. By the time we get into overnight Saturday night, where you got a landfall here, landfalling hurricane across southern North Carolina. This looks like it's really close to Morehead City, verbatim to the GFS here. But again, with high pressure moving into our north here, we might actually be okay here on Saturday. So it's going to be just some light shower activity, we think, and not the full brunt of the system, because you're going to have that high pressure working in some dry air to the north here. So there's going to be a cutoff to the north here where this rain doesn't quite advance to. So as it comes in, you can see there's just lights over our coverage area, just some light isolated showers. And then we get into Sunday after this thing made landfall. It's going to trek over North Carolina, and it's going to transition into a cold cord system. You're going to have some rain coming up here again here on Sunday. So you're going to have the rain Thursday night through Friday night. Kind of take a little bit of a break Saturday, not completely, but we're going to have some shower activity around, just light and more widely scattered. Then we get into Sunday. I think it's going to be a complete washout. Going to have the winds picking up again when the system makes landfall Saturday into Sunday. And then you see the system kind of just does like a little loopy-loop, transitions into more of a nor'easter effect here. So we get into Monday, we got more rain coming in here. So some rain coming in as this system treks off to the northeast and finally pulls out of here, we think by early Tuesday, and then heads off rapidly to the northeast. This is now essentially a nor'easter at this point, tracking over eastern Pennsylvania as a much weakened system. So this is not going to be a strong system here at this point. This is just going to be a heavy rain, maybe some gusty winds threat as we get into Sunday, Monday here, but the worst will be over by that point, and this thing pulls off to the northeast. So that's our latest thinking here with this system here. And then also we want to get into two other things here before we end the video. These are the winds here looking at, these are actually looking at sustained winds. So you have winds coming in here along the coastline, and our southern areas will be the worst here. We think we're going to have winds that are going to be generally in the 25 to 35 mile per hour range. We're going to have gusts of 55 to 60, especially by the shorelines here. So we'll have to watch for that. But further inland, you can see it's considerably less. But it will be. This will be changing as time goes on. And once the system makes landfall, you'll get it up pretty far to the north here, actually north of the Lehigh Valley, north of the Susquehanna Valley, lower Susquehanna Valley here. Some pretty high winds here looking at on Sunday. So Sunday I think will be the worst for our coverage areas here as far as wind potential, where we could have inland wind gusts as high as 50 miles per hour possible here on Sunday if everything works out the same. Of course, this is transitioning to a nor'easter at this point, so after this thing moves through Monday, the winds speeds go down significantly and they drop down, and this starts to pull away. As far as total rainfall, here's the GFS estimate. Heaviest amounts are going to be to the southeast here. Again, we're going to have rain here on Friday that's going to be concentrated on the southern two-thirds of our coverage area, so this area here will end up with a little bit more than areas to the northwest. But once the transition occurs on Sunday, where everybody's going to be getting the rain here, these are the total rainfall amounts. We're still talking about 2 to 3 inches up here in this area here, generally, with some locally higher amounts. Areas further to the south could be in the 4 to 6 inch range across our coverage area here with the remnants of the system, and that's going to be total rainfall accumulation from late Thursday all the way through the end of the storm early Tuesday. So this is over a long period. This is not all at once, but this is something we're going to be keeping an eye on here for rainfall totals as well. So if you want to follow like what our guidance is, you can continue to do that on the EPAWA forum. We do update that forum every single day throughout the day. It is a pay service, but this is our free public service that we provide. We will do this once a day leading up to the storm and give you updates as needed. But we will also be updating the forum constantly. If you want to stay up on the latest model guidance, our latest thoughts, our latest information, interact with our meteorologist, you can do so by clicking on the My Pocket Meteorologist banner below and click on that banner. It will take you to the My Pocket Meteorologist page. You can sign up for alerts specific to your county. And you can also do our forum. Either if you already have an existing service, you can add it on for just $30 for an entire year, and you can keep up with the discussions for not only this, but every storm going right through the winter. I'm Eastern PA Weather Authority meteorologist Bobby Martrich, and that is this special update for Hurricane Joaquin. Please stay tuned tomorrow for more updates as needed.